What's up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be going over another online chess game that I played. Now, the reason I'm making this video is I found out the reason I'm losing a lot of my chess games. I've been losing a lot of chess games, okay? I've over showed you 3 games that I lost. And, you know, I've become very frustrated. Like, why am I losing all of these games? You know, I'm not trying to brag. Like, I'm like a good, passable chess player. You know, so I'm wondering, like, why am I not a real? Why am I losing all these games? And I think I found the reason. And it could be the reason that you guys are also losing your games. It's not because you're bad. It's actually because of a completely different factor that doesn't have to do with your skill. And that's time management. And that's what we're going to cover in this video. So, today, on a Friday, I played another chess game. And I played pretty carefully, using the checklist, taking my time. And yet, I still ended up losing. And I wondered, you know, I'm like putting in all this effort and I'm still losing these games. And I think I found the reason as to why. Let's go over this game. So, I start off the game with e4. I've taken a break from playing openings like the Kadas opening. And here my opponent displays e5, but plays the move c5, the Sicilian defense. Now, this is one of the reasons I don't like playing e4, because I don't like getting into Sicilian defense. It's one of those super complex openings that have a lot of theory, and for someone who detests theory, I would prefer avoiding it. But seeing as my opponent's played it, and I can't really avoid it, I decide to just play knight f3, knight to c, and well, my opponent actually here plays e6, the French variation, and I just lash out in the center with d4, just trying to play in a normal principled fashion. Takes, my opponent plays knight to c6, the Taimana variation, knight to c3, bishop to e7, and here I play the move bishop to e3, getting ready to play queen d2, castle my king queenside, play c3, maybe even play f4, launch an attack on the king side, and so on and so forth. My opponent plays knight to f6, queen to d2, and here castles from both sides. And my opponent plays the move a5. Now, the reason this is not good is because now in the Sicilian defense you generally want to play a6. There's even a line or variation, in fact, in the Sicilian defense called Najdorf, where you play a6. And now the reason you want to play a6 is because it's to prevent these minor pieces from coming in, and it's also to prepare to push this pawn, because generally in Sicilian defense, both sides will be castled on opposite sides. I'm not a Sicilian defense expert, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it is. White will launch an attack on the king side, and black will launch an attack on the queen side. In order to prepare this attack, black has to play a6, after which he can then play b5, he can activate the queen, he can activate the rook, and, you know, etc., 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 right? But black doesn't play that. Black plays a5. And the problem is, you know, black wants to obviously just launch this attack right away. But the problem is you have to play a6 in order to prepare this attack. By playing a5, well, now this b5 pawn, the b5 square is very weakened, and so I immediately jump in with the move knight to b5, and as you can see, I already have this very strong battery, consequently of castling, and I'm now eyeing the d6 square, and just jump in there with my knight and just have a very powerful central commanding position. My opponent can't really play d5 because there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces covering that square, whereas black only has 1, 2, 3. So my opponent instead plays the move bishop to b4, trying to pin the knight to the queen. I just jump in, and then my opponent decides to change his mind and actually capture the knight. And so I take with my queen, and yeah, this is pretty good. Black is... Throughout this game, I really utilized immobilization. I would like it if you guys kept that in mind, because I really used immobilization in this game. Here, my opponent is quite immobilized. He can't really move these pawns. It's quite difficult to move, really. My opponent plays rook to e8. The purpose of playing rook to e8 is to play queen to e7 and get a trade. This queen can't really move otherwise. It can't go to c7. It can't go to b6. And so black plays rook to e8, seeking a trade. Oh, okay, I just want to take a deep breath there. Now, I play the move c. Now here, I decide to relax. I had all these exciting plans of going like f4, going e5, and doing whatnot, but I decided to just stop here and play the move f3. solidifying my e4 pawn, preventing this knight from coming in, just making this a nice little solid pawn chain. I'm not really in a rush here. My opponent goes queen to e7, but I'm going to trade on my own terms. There's really no need to take here, and I play the move knight to b5. And, I'm trying to do what the aggressive chess masters like Mikhail Tal or Rudolf Spielmann would do, and that's activating all their pieces, right, and trying to get them into action, get them towards the enemy position. I play the move knight to b5, and now I'm seeking to go to these squares, right? I'm seeking to go to these squares. I'm trying to activate my pieces. My opponent takes. I thought here what to take with, but I decided it would be better to take with the knight. As much as I would also like to go to c7, I thought it'd be better if I got the knight here. And my idea is that, if the rook goes here, I can attack it. If it goes here, then I can maybe line up some sort of attack on the rook once again. Or even there, even if you went here, I could line up an attack. My opponent takes, I take with the knight, rook here, and I attack the rook once more. And see, I'm also activating another piece, which is my bishop. The rook moves to f8. And black's position is very immobilized because the bishop can't move, these pawns are blocked, the rooks are quite passive, this knight also can't move, this knight can't really move a lot, right? I mean, it could go maybe here or here, but it probably wouldn't accomplish much. Here I played bishop, and here I wanted to activate once again another piece. I learned my mistake from the other game, my previous game, which was that don't just play with the piece over behalf, activate all of your pieces, right? So here I played the move bishop to b5, wanting to activate my bishop, maybe in the future trade off this knight, open up the position a bit more, simplify the material, and I also end up opening up the rooks. My opponent jumps into b4, attacking the a2 pawn. I could have just played king to b. I could have played maybe king b1, centralizing the king on the queen side and having an eye on all the pawns, but I decided to instead play the move a3 to kick back the knights, and then play the move rook to e1. Now, rook to e1 was with the plan of playing e5, but he quickly shut down, but my opponent quickly shut down the plan. I should have seen that beforehand. It would have been better if I just doubled up, and so I had to do this awkward thing of now doubling up like this, which was just really unnecessary. My opponent, meanwhile, played the move knight here, wanting to exchange this really powerful annoying knight. Rook to d2, he takes, and now it's still really good. It's a double bishop versus a knight bishop middle game, and we have this really powerful battery on the d-file. My opponent plays the move rook to e8, centralizing the rook, maybe potentially wanting to play rook e6 and trade off some of these powerful pieces. I play the move, and here, I decide to take. Takes. Now, if he takes like this, that would just not be good. I would be able to jump in, and then, this wouldn't be good. Like, let's say after bishop here, I would be able to exchange the rooks, probably take, and then rook here, and then let's say king here, takes. Actually, when I look at this position, it's pretty much a draw. We have Stockfish. Yeah, Stockfish thinks it's more or less equal, because, pawn structure, the pawn material is equal, both bishops, more or less, yeah. White is more or less better. Maybe white might be slightly better because black has this backward pawn. White could activate the king, but this was what I had in mind. Like if black took with the pawn, then I would get in here, etc., etc., etc. But my opponent took with the other pawn. He obviously did not want to get into this sort of trade. Maybe I could have done something better when I got to d8 instead of just doing that full exchange. But anyway, he takes with the pawn, and here I have like 8-9 minutes on the clock, and I'm like, what do I do now? Because I have this battery, I have this really nice bishop, but now what do I do? I sure as don't want to move this pawn and weaken my position, and I don't want to waste time as well, so I just play king b1. And here, yeah, you see a lot of time has been spent. I spent like a minute because I'm like panicking. Wait, what do I do now? So I play king b1, just, centralizing the kingdom. It's kind of like a waiting move, like what is my opponent going to do? My opponent pushes the pawn, right? Also waiting move, I suppose. I go bishop here, and now I'm starting to get some sort of idea. I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to, maneuver the bishop over and put pressure on this pawn. I have something like that in mind. The bishop here, I have something like that in mind. My opponent plays rook to a5, attacking my bishop. I go back, he attacks it again, And now I play rook d3. Now I'm starting to get some sort of plan, you know? I'm like, okay, I'll go here, then I'll go here, and then I'll go here, trade off the rooks, and then maybe things could start moving again. Maybe we can start like opening up the stagnant waters of this position. But, you know, yeah, my opponent plays the move f6, solidifying the e5 pawn, also opening up some room for the king. And here I play rook to c3, king to f7. Black is slowly activating this king, getting it into the game. And here I play rook to c5. He plays rook to e6, and here I take. If he takes, then obviously takes. So takes. And here, I could have just taken, and then king takes. And actually, this might have been the better thing I should have done. Now that I think about this, I really think I should have done this. I should have went for this trade. Doesn't really matter what he takes with. Now, the reason I want to do that, while Black's king is more active, the reason I wanted to do this, I think it would have been better, because now king takes, a lot of black, 3 of Black's pawns are on dark squares. First of all, I could have went here and target all of the pawns, right? I could have done that. I could have also... another thing is that Black's pawn, while the material's equal, both sides have bishops. Here's the problem. Black has weak pawns, and so even if you have weak pawns, that could be the difference between winning the game and a draw, alright? I know that sounds a bit over-dramatic, right? Maybe a bit over-exaggerated, but it's true. Because this pawn's a weakness. That pawn's also a weakness. Especially this pawn. So I could play c3, maybe get the king into the game, and maybe, like, for example, eventually get a trade on c4, take this, and isolate that pawn, right? Black could defend it with this with this light squared bishop, right? But maybe, just maybe, I could win this position. If we look at Stockfish things more or less equal, maybe worse, right? But maybe something could have come out of this position. But I wanted to go for the stakes. I wanted to keep it I wanted to keep it dynamic. I wanted to go for the win here. So I played rook to d5, targeting the pawn. My opponent goes rook to b5, b6, defending him. I attack his rook, he goes back. I play bishop to d8, you know, just trying to cut off the king, you know, just get in, you know. Once again, I have 5 minutes on the clock versus my opponent who has like 12 minutes, right? So I'm trying not to spend too much time. Bishop here. My opponent jumps in, and here I go rook to c5, targeting the bishop. My opponent defends it, and here I realize there's a move. Bishop to c7, rook to b7, and here I play a desperado. I'm going to place, I think this is a desperado. I'm going to sacrifice the bishop to get this bishop. Bishop takes. He can't take with the king because it's defended by the rook. So he takes with the pawn instead, and now rook takes the bishop. And now we're winning. I'm up a pawn, and I've shattered into the position. Okay? My opponent plays the move h6 in order to prevent this pawn from being in. I go rook to g8. My opponent defends it, but now I go back to d8. This was a bit of a mistake. I should have gone here, and I realized that. My opponent goes here, and I realize, okay, well, I'm going to need to get the rook over here, right? And I'm going to need to be active like this. Like, I just wanted to get the rook over here, right? Once again, I don't want black to sneak into my own position. That would be catastrophic. So, rook to b8, rook to c5, defending both pawns. I now go rook to b6 in order to jump in here. My opponent prevents me. I can't go in here, but what I do instead is I go rook to g6 to make him come here, and then go back so that now he can slip in. So rook to g6, he goes back, and then I play rook to d6. I'm now in here. My opponent brings back the rook to defend this, but now he just left both of these pawns vulnerable. I think my opponent made a mistake here. He could have defended this pawn, right? And then, you know, if I went here, then he could have went here, and then, you know, we could have had a draw, but I was obviously not going to go for a draw. So he brings back, but now I get these pawns. He goes here, I grab the pawn. Now I'm up 2 pawns. My opponent plays king to f6. I now play rook to d5. The pawn is protecting. We have this nice little pawn chain here. I'm targeting this. Once again, immobilization. My rook is keeping an eye on both of these pawns. Both of them. Which makes it difficult for black's rook to move, because he has to keep an eye on both of these pawns. My opponent goes king here. Now I play b3. Now it's time for me to activate my own king. Takes, takes. Rook to b6. Defending. That's defended. I go king to b2. d6. That's defended. Now that's defended, right? Maybe black's just trying to make the rook not chew more than it can take, or, you know, make it a bit more easier for the rook to move around. I go king to c3. He gives a check, and I go king to b4. allowing the rook now to slip in and eat these pawns. But now I will take this pawn, and I will try to make a queen and win the game. But look at the clock. I have 2 minutes and 47 minutes on the clock. Less than 3 minutes, whereas my opponent has almost 10 minutes. So I bet you guys can see where this is going, okay? Rook to c2. I take the pawn with my rook. I didn't want to take with the king because, takes, and then, I was afraid he'd go back and target this. Though I actually think it would have been fine because I could have just pushed, and then I could have pushed. Because by getting the rook in the way, this ended up really clogging things up. So I actually should have taken with the king, and then takes, and then I could push, and if takes, and then, in fact, I could have pushed like this, takes, pushed, and if it goes here, then I push, right? If he ever goes here, then I can go here, and if he goes there, I can push, if he attacks, I can defend. You guys get the point, right? That would have been better, but I made a pretty big mistake here, taking with the rook, which really ended up clogging the position. Right, this was just not necessary. I could have defended the pawns easily, but at least that was a nice endgame skill I learned. So he starts gobbling the pawns. I start pushing. He gobbles. I'm pushing. He goes rook to a2, targeting the pawn, making it impossible for him to push, and also freeing up space for his h-pawn to move forward, despite the fact that my rook's actually controlling that square, though, he could push this pawn and gradually try to push forward. I go rook to b6, getting my rook out of the vision. The idea is to go here, but just not thinking in the right way. Probably would have been better if I played, say, like rook h5, so if this, then this, right? Rook h5 probably would have been the better move to do here. Once again, the king is cut off from getting help, and then this would have freed up space, right? Once again, the problem of bringing the rook is I'm like clogging up the position. This would have been better, and then I could have played king here, push the pawn, king here, push the pawn, right? Maybe play here, and then just win the game. But once again, but I have 2 minutes on the clock. Right, almost 3 but 2 minutes, so I'm quite stressed right now. I'm trying not to spend too much time. So push. He pushes, and I go. He pushes another pawn, I go. He pushes another pawn, I give a check, maybe trying to get in here. King here, king to b7, pawn to h3, and here, with 16 seconds on the clock, I play a fatal mistake. A fatal mistake, my friends. Rook to d5. Now this is a fatal mistake. What I needed to do here, according to Stockfish, rook to a5 check. So that if king here, I could just take. If king here, then I could just play rook here. If he pushes, he can't push, by the way. Then here, he can't push, okay? And then I can push the pawn and convert. Even if he takes, it doesn't matter. And by the way, if king here, this, and push, I go here. Once again, he can't push, right? But I don't do that. I play rook to d5. I wasn't thinking practically here. I had 10 seconds. Look, in my defense, I had 10 seconds on the clock, okay? When you have 10 seconds on the clock and your opponent is near to queening and you can end up losing a game that you so worked hard to win, you can become a bit high-strung. Let me just tell you guys that. So rook to d5 was a critical mistake. Now he pushes the pawn, and my idea is to go here. But the problem is king here. Now he gets in with the king, right? Pawn push, king here. Rook here, pawn push, queen. But it doesn't matter because takes, and now he has the double pawns. And I have set 5 seconds on here, but now it's too late. I could have tried to play rook here, actually. Which was, apparently this is still losing. King here. Apparently this is still losing, but king here, pawn push, and if pawn push, then I could have done this, and now it doesn't really matter if he converts. Oh wait, my bad. King here, then I could just take this, and then I could just go on to win, right? But apparently this is still losing, because takes, yeah, I believe, yeah, g3 would be the better move. g3, and then king here. But anyway, I'm not going to get into the intricacies of this. Once again, I have like 5 seconds on the clock. So I play b4, and he queens. I take, maybe it would have been better if I tried to give a check and try winning some double ones. It doesn't really matter, 3 seconds here, right? Takes, and then I just lose from timeout. Now, when I lost this game, I got so angry. Let me just tell you guys that I was so upset. Because imagine playing a 20-minute chess game. You're playing so carefully. Okay? You're using the checklist, right? You're moving in, you're mobilizing, activating your pieces, immobilizing your opponent's position, getting all of them activated, right? Slowly maneuvering, right? You have like beads of perspiration, beads of sweat, just sliding down your face. That actually didn't happen, but I'm just using that for dramatic effect. You know, you move in, you're looking for an advantage. You're able to get this advantage. You're able to win the pawns, and then you end up losing. Do you know how crushing this was? This was a crush. I was so upset when I lost this game. Now, why am I sharing this game with you? Normally, I wouldn't want to share this game with you because, you know, a person doesn't like sharing his losses as much as he likes sharing his victories. But the point of this game wasn't because of instructional reasons. Like, oh, well, I made this mistake. No, because I've noticed a pattern in my games. I take a lot of time to play my moves. And, you know, you see, just look at my clock, right? My opponent always has more time. This has always been the case. And up until I made the fatal mistake of playing rook here, I was winning. Now, if I also had like 8 minutes on the clock, I could have actually won this thing. I could have been like, I should go here, and then, you know, should do this and that, right? And then so on and so forth. But consequently, because I had 16 seconds on the clock, I actually screwed it up. I was actually winning, guys, right? I was actually winning. It wasn't because I was playing bad, right? I ended up playing bad towards the end of the game because I had little time. Like, in my previous game, that was also the case. I had a good position. Like, well, okay, I'm not going to go to my archive now, but, in my previous game, if I'm not remembering correctly, I also was getting a winning position. Yeah, I also got a winning position, but because I had like 4 minutes on the clock, I then blundered. That was also because I didn't use the checklist. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. It kind of is related, but it's because of time. You know, before 20 minutes, I used to play 10 minutes. 10 minutes was too short. I moved it up to 15. 15 was also too short. I moved it up to 20, but I think I just need a little bit more time. Like, by the time I get to the end game, I already have only a few minutes on the clock, whereas my opponent has like 10, right? And that's why I end up constantly losing. That's why I ended up constantly losing my elo points. It's not because I'm playing bad, and that's definitely a reason as well. It's definitely a factor. But it's because of my time management. Time management is the major reason. It is the major reason. Okay? It's the reason. Alright? Now, I don't want to take too much of your time. But what I want to say in this video is, if you're losing your games, it might not be just because you're playing bad or it's because of this and that. It might be because you're just not playing with a comfortable time management. I thought 20 minutes was good for me. Now I realize it's not. So, you know, from now on, I'm going to play 30-minute chess games. And I'm going to see if that's good for me. I think that'll be good for me. I hope. May the Lord will it. Okay? But finding a comfortable time for yourself is critical. Okay? It's very important. So, you know, that's why I wanted to share this video. Hopefully in the future, when I play 30-minute chess games, I can actually win. You know, I was actually going to win this game, but, you know, I lost because of timeout, you know. So, yeah, by the way, if you're wondering why I was very emotional and very dramatic in this game, well, you know, first of all, it makes the videos entertaining. By the way, I made this video analysis right after I played the game, you know, so that also has some effect. If I was doing this like 2 days later, you know, waking up in the morning with a cup of coffee, it definitely would have sounded a lot more cool, but, you know, it is what it is. By the way, I'm writing a novel on Substack. You guys can follow me there. It'd mean a lot to me, right? I also have another channel on YouTube where I make religious videos. I'm actually going to upload a religious video today. about Islam. So I'll leave a link tree in the description box below so that you can access those. And I will see you guys next time, and I hope that we can also get better at chess.